Member from Courtenay-Alberni.
Well, they're looking for this minister to take leadership on this. Mr. Speaker, in June 2021, the Justice Committee tabled a report about systemic racism in policing in Canada in response to the tragic death of Tloquet First Nation member Chantel Moore, who died at the hands of an Edmundston police officer during a wellness check. And one of the core recommendations in the report was the RCMP's Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, and that it be required to include Indigenous investigators and decision makers, and that it ensure Indigenous investigators are involved where the complaint involves Indigenous peoples. These are critical measures to allow for meaningful and engaged Indigenous participation and hold the RCMP accountable for wrongful, negligent, reckless, or discriminatory behavior towards Indigenous people. June 4th will mark the 4th anniversary of Chantel's death. A wellness check should never have resulted in her death at the hands of the police and at the barrel of a government-issued gun. Chantel's family and community are still waiting for justice. Can this minister, the Justice Minister, tell us what the status of this recommendation is, what he's doing with that report when it comes to systemic racism and policing, and how is he working with the Department of Public Safety to ensure that these are followed up and implemented, these clear recommendations?
The Honourable Minister has 75 seconds to respond, which exceeds slightly the time that's left on the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I would say is a number of things. So in terms of the tragic death of that woman, that is an absolute tragedy that I feel extreme sympathy, and my heart goes out to her family. And what I would say is, in terms of responses, what we're doing is we're working on a number of fronts. We're working on reimagining how we do policing, and policing as an essential service. That's something that's governed by the Minister of Public Safety, and he's working in that regard. Secondly, what we're doing is addressing systemic racism. We're calling it out by name. We're addressing systemic racism in terms of policing, including in terms of the RCMP. Thirdly, what I'm doing specifically is working on an Indigenous justice strategy that is targeted at curing the vast overrepresentation of Indigenous people in both our court system and justice system and in our correction system. That will help with addressing some of the circumstances that led to that fatality, which should have been avoided and needs to be avoided going forward.